Can you hear us
Can you
now?
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I knew something was going on. But like I was saying, this week we got some amazing people, so we're going to let you guys introduce yourselves. So Dr. Gar, you can go first.
Hi, Dr. Claire Agard. I'm a school psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I've worked in juvenile detention centers, public school system, and at NIH conducting research.
Mm-hmm. You go ahead, Lene. I'm happy to see you today.
Hey everyone, my name is Lene Williams. I am a HIA or a Healing Youth Alliance ambassador for Baltimore City. I am also part of Heart Smiles, which is a awesome youth promise, not a program, it is a promise to the youth in Baltimore City.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am also a youth activist and social justice activist as well.
Yes. Perfect. I'm happy to have you guys here today. We'll have a dynamic discussion on today. I'm excited to hear you guys' thoughts and different things that you guys see in our community. But today, our focus, if you guys don't know, if you didn't see the flyer, mental health in the Black community as it relates to trauma and stuff like that, and how it also connects to the transatlantic slave trade. You know, we think about Juneteenth coming up this weekend. This is a milestone. So it's important that we talk about different things that not only that we achieve, but also about things we've been through and how to look forward in the future. So as we start this conversation, I'm gonna ask this one question. In order to survive, Black people have to breed resilience, so they have to be strong. How does living in a constant state of or fight, fight or flight affect the psyche? So how does it affect your mental? Start with that, Dr. Carter. How does living in a life where you're always trying to be strong, but everything is against you? Like how does that affect someone's mental health?
Well, if you're in a constant state of fight or flight, your
Mm-hmm.
body never gets back to that resting state
Yeah.
because the fight or flight system or stress response system is designed to help us to cope when there's danger, to alert us to danger. And then when that danger passes, the body goes back to a resting state. So if
Yeah.
you're in constant stress, it never returns to that resting state.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, you become hypervigilant, where you're always looking for something negative to happen. And gradually you become numb because develops a sense of helplessness, hopelessness, and of not caring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good because like when you always going, when you always got something going on, you literally your body and your mind just does not rest. You know what I'm saying? You have no time to really breathe or just to actually
And the bad thing about it, that happens, and you see it manifesting itself in both physical illness and mental illness.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of research that's shown that a lot of physical illnesses are linked to stress, and it's a complicated system about how that all happens. But and a lot of illnesses that we see in the Black community can be related partially to
Partially.
stress. There's no way to say it's 100% the result of stress,
Mm-hmm.
but things like high blood pressure,
Yeah.
diabetes, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
There's a direct relationship because our brain and body communicate. There's a communication system there.
Mm-hmm.
So that when one is ill, the other can become ill.
Wow. Yeah.
Some people cope better than others. Some people have no reaction, and other people have the kind of reactions that look like PTSD.
Yeah. That's good. I want to I'm gonna ask the same question to Lene. Like, have you ever had experience where you were like where you feel like you're always in a fight or flight situation? Like definitely when a lot of things is going on in this prevalent time where like different things, you feel like unrest. Have you ever had experience as a Black activist? Every time you turn around, there's something going on. So you're like, how do I deal?
Um,
So like, how do you deal
yeah.
with it, young activists?
Well, really, especially because nowadays it's definitely a lot of topics being thrown around through social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say a lot of those effects are now being played through the youth where we look at social media and we have to like determine, how do we want this affecting our lives? especially with, this whole controversy thing over Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, or
Yeah.
even just, riots in general that just literally happened last year, literally. So me looking at it, I have to really like determine, I want to collect my information. I want to collect myself. I want to collect the facts versus jumping straight into it, because you don't want to just jump straight into something and you just don't know.
Yeah.
That's why when this whole controversy of the June 19th thing, I'm backing off, because I want to watch and see how this plays out, because watching it allows me to breathe, watching it allows me to think, or watching it allows me to see what are other people's standpoints on it, because you have some people who, yes, make it a federal holiday, and you have some
Well,
people, no, we want reparations.
well, today the House voted, and the resolution has passed for it to be a holiday.
Yeah.
And President Biden is supposed to sign it this evening.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was shocked that there were so many votes. It was more than 800, more than 400. I think there were something like 12 people who voted against it. Some number close to 12.
But I'm happy to talk about Juneteenth because I have a really strong question. It could be argued that many of these concerns, like things that happen, like right now in life, as police brutality, racism, are connected back to slavery. That's my Juneteenth, right? Do you see generational cycles that stems from our past, Dr. Agard?
Well, there's been a lot of research that's shown that trauma, it's been referred to as ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. That when children are subjected to those experiences before age 18, it affects their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It can affect mental health and or physical health. And the more of those ACEs that you are exposed to, the greater the chance that you're going to have a negative outcome. And that could be things like living in a community where there's violence, poverty, so there's poor nutrition, marital parental strife in the home, drug abuse, alcoholism, a whole gamut of things.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, minority communities tend to be subjected. ACEs knows no race or class or anything. But unfortunately, minority communities are more likely to be exposed to those adverse experiences, and to a greater extent. So in that sense, you can say it's been generational because it's being passed down from generation to generation. The other thing is, some of the research has shown that these negative experiences alter how genes express themselves.
Yeah.
So, and in young children, there's a particular part of the brain that doesn't develop the way it should when a child has been exposed to an overwhelming, well, not even an overwhelming, to multiple ACEs. And like I said, because it happens more often in minority communities, in that way we can link it, to slavery and racism and all that.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you think about Danae? Like, do you think that there's a cycle that comes as from your experience, what you see, like what you learn doing your activism work? Do you see a cycle any type of way when you think about police brutality and also back in the day transatlantic slavery?
Okay, people are gonna tell you I could talk your heads off all day about this topic. This is my topic that I'm presenting on the 29th, basically. So when it comes down to generational trauma, that's basically what it is. It's generational trauma. You have these cycles, like Dr. Agar has said, you have these cycles of ACEs, you have these cycles of a lot of things that just continuously happen. And I've studied, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry. She's a doctor, and she referenced off PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome. That happens a lot, especially from the cycle of slavery, from the time we were emancipated, from the time we were kidnapped from Africa, from the time of the Jim Crow era, from the time of segregation era, from the time of just even wars and just anything. We look at it and we pass it down. Especially look at the African American community in the 1960s through the early 70s when you had the Black Panther rising, you had the police brutality, you had a purpose in the community, but we were always looked at as the threat. You have Black men in the community looked as the threat. You had Black women being scrutinized and policed and also looked as a threat. It comes through a lie. And, late Gray, Latte Gray, she said intergenerational trauma not only is within families, but within communities. And that is right. It is also multi-generational, transgenerational from
Yeah.
a lot of different aspects. And it also goes through when we had redlining. That also definitely played a part, especially when you have different communities that have disadvantages and disparities, and you have Black dysphoria. Like, you have all those different aspects that we look at, and it's just it's just passed down. So yeah.
I mean, the other thing is with, this kind of feeling of helplessness that happens, um, people get to a point where they don't care.
Yeah.
And it's natural. So I'm not blaming. It's natural when you've been subjected to that. And, the entire US society in different aspects, areas of it, there's racism. It's not always overt, but it's there. But, you get to the point, a group of people can get to the point where they don't care. They don't care about voting. High school kids don't care about going to school. They're so hopeless that they talk about not living to be age 18. You see the high rates of alcoholism and drug use. So it's like often you hear people blame the victim, blame Black people for these things that happen in their community, and not look at the causes, how we got to be where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and can I mention something really quick? Okay, the doctor I was mentioning is Dr. Joy DeGroy. She is the author of PTSS and how it's been passed down. So I'll put it in the comments, but if y'all want to go read her book.
Yeah, because honestly, I believe that PTSS is really real. Like, because you can see the cycle, you can see it in a certain way. You can see it happening. Definitely of how we respond to certain things as a community, and also how we're being treated. So I do see a cycle. It don't have to be similar, but it's some type of cycle that we see. If it's the way of the school to prison pipeline system, it's all the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see the similarities, and it's kind of sad in a way of how we sometimes it goes around the road. Like, okay, well, it just happened, and this is another number, or this is another situation, but this is a serious issue that we see. But when we see the killings of like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, police brutality kind of strikes a fear in certain people, like definitely our lives. Do you see anxiety as a prevalent issue after seeing these tragic things happen? Definitely, during the wake of George Floyd, we see people going crazy. The riots was going crazy last summer. Like, do you believe there's a certain level of anxiety that comes up, Dr. Agard?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because what you see is like initially there was this whole emotional reaction because everyone who saw it on TV was traumatized. And you get a lot of symptoms that are similar to like you see in anxiety, like the difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, incessant worrying.
Yeah.
But over time, those anxiety-like symptoms can wane. And with time, you see more of the symptoms that look like PTSD, where the individual or people may be just reliving what the trauma was, or something happens that reminds them of the trauma, and they go back to having all those negative feelings again. That's why I said yes or no. I think, I think there's an initial emotional reaction and there's a long-term emotional reaction. And it's the long-term emotional reaction that tends to be dangerous for us.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that can affect how we move about trying to make change also in a way.
Yeah.
Also, I agree.
And trauma changes us. It changes our behavior, it changes our attitudes, and it impacts our day-to-day functioning. And that was a traumatic event.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, there are going to be negative outcomes, not just for the Floyd family, but for the majority of Africans. They're African Americans. There are people who are subjected to trauma. We're all different.
Yeah.
And some may not react. They may not, and then others will react. So we can't say that everybody's been traumatized.
That's true.
Because with some people, they may be traumatized by one event.
Mm-hmm.
Others, it may take several events for them to have that traumatic reaction. So it's all individual.
We have a question about our wonderful other co-moderator. She says, do you think the trauma young Black kids experience caused them to grow up faster?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna say yes. Specifically, I'm gonna say yes and no, because sometimes it can delay a function and sometimes it can, speed up a function within their brain. And I'm only saying that because I witness it a lot in communities, especially in the Black community in Baltimore. You have some kids who are so traumatic, they don't know where their mind is. And you have some kids who have different levels to it, where they can either be in resentment, they can either be in depression, they can either be in, gangs, crime, who knows what. And then you just have those people who, are nonchalant, that, aren't really triggered by it. And it's only because they don't know how to assess their feelings. They don't know how to cope with their feelings. They don't know how to explain how they're feeling. They don't even know basically the idea of a feeling, because they can't do it, because they've probably been triggered. They've probably been in so many experiences so much where, it sinks in. And sometimes nonchalant, that's why I say yes or no, because you can be nonchalant whether you're going to be, childish, you're going to be, growing up a little bit faster, where you have to do those things, where you have to keep a, like we said in the beginning, a fight or flight sense, like you're at an edge. So I'm gonna say yes and no.
I will say yes, in the sense that you see a large number of Black children who have to take on more responsibility because their parents are working long hours just for a minimum wage or doing 2 or 3 jobs. I'm going to say no, because when you're subjected, again, when I said when you've had multiple traumatic experiences, there's a negative impact on brain development. Mm-hmm. And so you see a lot of those individuals who have been subjected to trauma over and over and over again, whether it's racial trauma or trauma in the home or other trauma in the community, there are certain brain regions that are less developed, that are immature. And that could be manifested in things like difficulty learning or poor decision making, depending on the brain region it is. So that's why I say no.
Yeah, so I do have a question now, because now thinking about it as a way that when we do see racial trauma, it's really a serious issue. What are some ways as a Black person we can now pretty much now work on the future? How do we grow from that? How do we now experiencing trauma? How do we go about now living a life where we can use that experience and make a bit better impact, or try to not destroy who we are, you know what I'm saying, and allow, you know what I'm saying? So can you answer that? Have you seen any type of a student or a Black person in the community? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to think. Your question, I got lost for a minute. Your question was, how can you progress after that?
Yeah, how can you? How do you?
Well, I think a part of it is parent training and parent involvement. I also think that because the students, like you said, students spend a lot of time in school.
Yeah.
And there's a specific approach to education, which is referred to as a trauma-informed approach. And schools that implement that, they create practices and policies that are sensitive to traumatized kids, and they work to create learning environments that are safe and supportive. And they implement practices such as, teachers and staff building relationships with students. It's a structured program, so it's not done willy-nilly. There's focus on building safe environments, and there are interventions that are designed to address anxiety or any other response to the trauma.
Yeah.
And so there are schools across the country referred to as trauma-informed schools because they're implementing those kinds of practices.
Exactly. How do you actually, Lene, like, how do you, like, after seeing stuff that you dealt with, like, seeing all the racial trauma, all the things that you've seen on the screen about George Floyd and Beyonce, like, now, how did you cope?
Personally?
Yeah, no, yeah, you can answer this too, but Lene, also, like, how did you cope? Like, what did you do personally after that? Like, how did you handle?
Okay. Honestly, it takes a while for me to get triggered by something.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily like triggered. Yes, I was outraged. Yes, I was in disbelief. But I wasn't triggered to the point where I had to like cope with a feeling and I had to, deal with that. More so, I was just watching on the news, and in my mind, I'm just thinking like, okay, we got into a point where we did not want to reach in America. We've gotten to multiple points, but especially to this one that was in disbelief. I had to really like assess I assess things purposely. So if I'm assessing something like that's that traumatic, I have to realize like, can I do something about it? I wasn't down there, so I could not like physically like help. Knowing me, I would have probably played superhero, trying to like help. But with me, I had to like assess it. I have to really think, is this smart? Is this attainable? Like, what is the purpose out of what I'm trying to do? So coping with things that are over the screen aren't really traumatic to me now. If that was like in person, I would be just in blunt shock. And just like, in that moment, it was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I'm gonna need therapy after this. But I wasn't in that need where I needed that because it wasn't a trauma that was inflicted eye to eye. It was over screen. And I would love to answer, what's her name? Sierra's question, if that's okay.
What's the question?
I was just about to roll
it.
That schools have more conversations regarding slavery and racism in America, or is that too traumatizing in itself?
Well, no, I don't think it. I think it should be a part of education. It can be a part of the social skills curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a part of what's being done in some schools now. It's called social emotional learning.
Mm-hmm.
And social emotional learning focuses on giving kids the skills that help them to acquire, knowledge about helping them to develop healthy identities, manage their emotions, achieve personal and community goals, feel empathy for others, develop goals and achieve them. So social emotional learning would touch on all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there are schools across the country that are doing it. If I had my way, social emotional learning would be implemented in every school system from preschool to 12th grade. Because it prepares you, whether you're black, white, pink, blue, it prepares you for what you're going to have to deal with. And Black students especially need that preparation.
But before you answer, but how also should we like do that? Like, how could the school system do that? Because like, it's becoming an issue where we can't talk about certain things, maybe too touchy, or what I'm saying. Like, how should schools do that in a way.
You know, in some school systems, like when my son was in school, they did, I don't remember if they called it sixes or what they called it, when he was like in fourth grade.
Yeah.
But parents had to sign permission.
Mm-hmm.
And in his entire class, only one parent did not give permission, and her daughter sat in the library. Well, it could be handled that way. Those parents who don't want their kids exposed to it, then, you know, it could be one of those things where parental permission is required. And parents make that choice for their children. But I think it should be a part of the curriculum. But it's going to have to be taught with sensitivity and care.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to have to be age appropriate. At whatever grade level it starts, it has to be age appropriate.
Okay. Lene?
Okay, I'm gonna go like question by question.
Yes,
So,
I can't even see them.
with schools integrating slavery and, you know, all those great topics, I'm not being insensitive. We need to stop focusing on the Holocaust and start focusing on the issues that are uphand in our country. I'm sorry to say it. That's just the truth. I've learned more about the Holocaust than I've learned about anything about slavery in schools in the past. I don't even know how many years I'm in school. I'm in 11th grade. But like seriously,
yeah.
I do not understand the controversy on why they don't want to teach it. What are you so afraid of? Know your history so you don't repeat it. Point blank, period. But it is some people in different countries that's like a agree to disagree. I saw that she was about to do that. But, you know, it's different states out here that are really like, no, we're not teaching that. And it's a state where the teachers, if they teach it, they're getting fired. I'm like, hold on, wait, pause.
Yeah. You know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then how I would implement it, you know, trying to teach kids drastically, you know how we learn how to read and write. They teach things step by step so it progresses. Like you learn your 1, 2, 3s before you learn Y MX plus B. So, you know, I would go based off of how old you are. Like Dr. Garcia said, you know, making it age appropriate. When you get to pre-K, they need to be taught certain things like this is respect, because I know I understand some schools teach that, but it's not a lot of schools that really thoroughly teach that. And then by the time you get into like the 1st and 2nd grade in social studies, I get that we're learning about how Christopher Columbus allegedly, you know, founded America or whatnot. But we need to understand that those history books are so outdated and, you know, throw them away. It's done. Them curriculums, I remember just going in there and them books, pages gone, written in inappropriate pictures written in there. Like, it's outdated. It's done. I don't care about Jamestown. I'm sorry. I want to know the real Black history. I want to know all of that. I don't care about George Washington because technically his teeth were slave teeth anyways. You know, just knowing and implementing the right standards and the right information is very much important. And when you get to 12th grade, I think there needs to be papers on, you know, political science things and all those other, you know, genres mixed in there. Because if you can tell a child about the Holocaust, if you could tell a child about World War II, you could tell them who were in it. You could tell them about the Tuskegee Airmen. You could tell them about that, you know, just, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot of things. And it's so systematically done that people are realizing it and some people are denying it.
Wow. You can tell I've got an accent, right?
Yeah.
I'm from South America. And we were taught about slavery in school. We were taught West Indian history, places like Jamaica, Trinidad. Where I'm from, the British had slaves there. You know, there was slavery. The country was French at one time, then Dutch, and then French again, and finally British. And there was slavery there. So, you know, I come from a slave background too, but we were taught it in school. Mm-hmm. We were taught about like slaves in Jamaica who ran away in the hills. They were referred to as the Maroon. We were taught about the slave rebellion. In Guyana, where I'm from, there's a huge monument to the guy who led the rebellion. And I think if you would ask anyone from that background, it didn't hurt us, you know?
Yeah.
I think we also did things like European history. I think it made us aware of our backgrounds. The country's got like seven different races, and we learned about everybody. But we did European history, so I think it gave us more of a well-rounded background. I don't think anybody was hurt because they learned. You know, when they were European like kids there, it wasn't a big deal. It was the history. So even here, I don't think we need to throw out what we've got. I think so. That's one thing I've got to disagree with you on. I think we need to add to it, add the history of African Americans, add the history of slavery, because I would want my child to leave school with a well-rounded education, not just, you know, knowledge on African American history or just on European. Give them it all. Because, you know, going to college and having a degree doesn't make an educated person. Education is about being well-rounded. There are people who don't have college degrees that I consider to be educated. So I would want my kid in the public school to have it all. I'm greedy. I want to have everything.
Yeah, I do agree. I do believe that we should, you know, like I feel like now schools are whitewashed in a way with history, but integrating that Black history will help us to not just know about where we live at history, but who we are as a person, where we come from. As we wrap up tonight, I do want to hear just one more. I want to ask one more question. But what does Juneteenth mean to each of you all now that we are approaching this wonderful, wonderful? It's time to talk about, you know, I guess the time to celebrate. But what did Juneteenth mean to you? You go first, out of guard.
Well, honestly, I'd never heard about it until 5 years ago. I've been in this country over 30 years and I'd never heard of it. And a speech pathologist with whom I work mentioned it. And I was like, what? And then she explained it to me. And, you know, now that's been about 5 years. And I'm still amazed that 2 years after slavery was emancipated,
Yes.
people in Texas still kept Blacks enslaved.
Yeah.
You know, so that when I heard about it, that was my reaction to it. With the holiday, I think it's significant. It's significant because apart from Martin Luther King's Junior Day, I don't think there's any other holiday that recognizes anything about African Americans, anything at all. So, you know, it's positive. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Lene?
Okay. Hear me out in this. I think it's great, but I think it was never needed. Okay, we were still going to celebrate. Forget the holiday. Okay, we were still going to celebrate. It would have been really no point of recognizing it as a holiday because all the white people are about to get paid leaves anyway, so it wouldn't even matter. And that is true. If someone who is white and their company is having a holiday, like my mom's job, she gets off on holidays and she works year round. If Juneteenth was to be on a weekday, she would get a paid leave. Point
Okay,
simple.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So probably not this Saturday will be a paid leave, but you know, y'all get what I'm trying to say. It is a slap on the back to the Black community. Point blank period. We did not need it. We were still going to celebrate it. It was still going to be done. Though I like the recognition, great, whoop-de-whoop. I'm not even about signing papers. I'm more of about action. So talking about Juneteenth, having parades, great. We celebrate, whoop-de-whoop. Now it's time to actually get into action and doing it. Like, no offense, I was rooting for Joe Biden. I mean, I'm not biased towards him, but I was rooting for him. He could have did something in regards to Juneteenth. Maybe having something signing. I mean, I don't know what this thing about is reparations is because it takes a lot to even get reparations regardless because you got to connect down your lineage. And for people like me who don't know where my lineage really starts, do I get my reparations? So it's like it's kind of a little off. And then like what is kind of like off and triggering. I mean, not triggering, but like off to me is where as though you saying we get the recognition now, Joe Biden, let's put in some action. You're signing that paper, but you could have signed that into something else. There could have been something else the House could have signed that into. There could have been, protecting Blacks since we are protecting Asians. Why can't we protect the actual minority that is actually being targeted? I get that, Asians are being targeted. I'm probably sounding a little off, but, Black people, we are, like, Black men are as an endangered species alone in this world. So, like, having this Juneteenth is great. I love it. And I want Black people to celebrate. I want people to recognize. I want people to know the history. I want people to go in depth. I want people to know where you came from and understand the Black power. But we need to do a little bit more than just having a holiday alone.
But you're saying we don't need it. We. You don't know how other people feel about
I said
it.
I'm a little half on it. I did mention in the beginning, I'm
know?
half on it. Because it is people who like it, and it is people who, don't like it. So that's why I say I'm half on it, and I'm speaking for the people that is just kind of like, we want action. That's what I'm speaking for.
Yeah, I understand. It's like a thing where you see recognition, but you want some type of backing up of it too, because it's enough,
Right.
but it's not enough to get that push. That recognition, that push up. But I do appreciate now it actually being recognized as something. You know what I'm saying? Not just a regular day. It's something as special as it is, because a lot of people didn't even know. Like, I told my friends the other day, said, "What is Juneteenth? You know what Juneteenth is?" Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, you didn't know?
Okay. Well, friends didn't know. I was like, wow, you know what Juneteenth is? You know what I'm saying? And it kind of hurt. You know what I'm saying? You should know that even though Independence Day it freed the slaves, but still 2 years later, there was still, Texas still had slaves, So it was important for us to know about Juneteenth, because we thought slavery was over, but it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? And it's important to know
I
that.
tell people that all
Yeah.
the time. They be like, well, slavery ended in 18 da 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 da. I'd be like, babes, go reread your history books, because we were still slaves by the institutionalized jail systems and prisons. We're still enslaved. It is modern slavery. Okay.
Lene, I want to ask you something. This is your job, but I'm going to ask her. Do you think that we as Black people have any responsibility for our improvement?
We do. And I'm saying, because I want to run for Congress in the next, when I get older, obviously. And my motto is, if you want change, you go do the change. Black people, if you want to go and get that change, if you want that change so bad, go into your offices and you make it. You run for city council, you run for mayor, you run for president. You go and you put yourselves in those positions where so you can elevate yourself and elevate your minority, elevate your people. Because a lot of people are all talk about this, thing on, the system is messed up, this is messed up, this, that is wrong. But you're all talking about it. You're not doing anything about it. Please step aside for the people who actually want to do it. Like me. Like, I want to do something. I want to make the change. I want to do that. If you're going to talk about it, you can go on ahead in your blogs while I go and I run for office. That's me. And I go and make those policies and I promote these ideas. You can step aside. So that's me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, I feel like there's a certain level of not, we just like to stop sitting down and start actually making change. Like, we need to use our voices more, and actually we need to find a new way of. Well, we have a good way, but it's a new strategy on how to make change as a community. Because sometimes standing up in that place of Congress, sometimes people get up that place and we push them all the way up there and still don't do nothing at all. You know what I'm saying? So what do we do as a people, as a community, without even having that position in Congress to continue to make that change in our community? So it's like when people like you who wants to do it, that's great. We also have to think about people that's out there in the community that can do the same exact thing without even the title or recognition. So there's like a double standard. Like, you got to do something as people currently need to make change, but us as a community need to do something too, to do something and make a difference. Because I see it all the time. I feel sometimes we're a little lazy. We're a little lazy. We talk about it, or they argue about it, but none of us is out here going out protesting or standing.
I think though when we address these issues, we should make an effort not to be confrontational, because when you are, people don't listen. They're gonna become defensive.
That's true.
We need to be clear and direct,
I
but not confrontational. You know, you've got your anger. You're human. We're human. You got your anger. You, whatever it is, resentment. But we need to hang and hold on to some of that when we're addressing these issues in order to be more effective. I think there should be discussions, not debates. You know,
I love. Yeah.
and also I think listening is a major part of it,
Yeah.
not just talking. And we should be listening not only to people who have our points of view, but people with different perspective. So I think, so when we're making an effort to act, there's some things we need to keep at the backs of our mind if we want to be effective.
Yep.
And I definitely can agree,
Yeah.
because I like to listen. Like I've been listening to some of
Mm-hmm.
your statements, because it is very important to be open minded to a lot of situations. So yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I love it, because we see it in our life right now. Like we can't argue with nobody to get a point across. You have to really sit down and communicate it. I can't talk to my friend about an issue that we both disagree on if we're not communicating it. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing with this issue right now in our community. We have to have a conversation and not a debate. It's more than going back and forth. It's about actually talking about it to make a solution. So I'm so happy tonight that you guys came through. I'm sorry we didn't have Antonia Hardy with us tonight, but you guys did an amazing job. I want you guys to come back again a million times.
Well,
Yeah, we really do. So please give a round of applause for these amazing panelists and therapists.
Thank you.
You guys have a wonderful day. If you have anything else you want to add before we close.
No, but I do
was
have
a
one.
pleasure.
I do have one thing to add. Okay, I'm a Healing Youth Alliance ambassador for Baltimore City, and our inauguration and our presentation, I will be presenting historical trauma. That's me. I'm all about that. And I want you guys to come out on Tuesday, June 29th from 6 to 6:30 at Horse Smiles Live
Where
on
was that?
YouTube. It's Horse
Oh,
Smiles
okay.
Live
Okay.
on YouTube. Horse Smiles
Okay.
MD.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. You heard what she said. Come on, support her conversation. We love seeing youth out here making a change and voicing the issues that's going on in our community. Thank you so much, Lene. Thank you so much, Dr. Agard. We hope to see you.
You are welcome.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys.